Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Dhena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Sarasatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye. We're continuing our reading of the Srimad Bhagavatam. We're on canto number 5, and chapter is 16, a description of Jambudvip, and we're taking up where we left off at the last break at text number 26.
There are other mountains. There are other mountains beautifully arranged around the foot of Mount Meru, like the filaments around the whorl of a lotus flower. Their names are Kuranga, Kurara, Kusamba, Vaikanka, Trikuta, Shishira, Patanga, Ruchaka, Nishada, Srinivasa, Kapila, Shanka, Vaidurya, Jarudi, Hangsa, Vishava, Naga, Kalanjara, and Narada. Text 27. On the eastern side of Sumeru mountain are two mountains named Jatara and Devakuta, which extend to the north and south for 18,000 yojanas, 144,000 miles. Similarly, on the western side of Sumeru are two mountains named Pavana and Pariyatra, which also extend north and south for the same distance. On the southern side of Sumeru are two mountains named Kailas and Karavira, which extend east and west for 18,000 yojanas. And on the northern side of Sumeru, extending for the same distance east and west, are two mountains named Trishinga and Makara. The width and height of all these mountains is 2,000 yojanas, 16,000 miles. Sumeru, a mountain of solid gold, shining as brilliantly as fire, is surrounded by these 8 mountains. Text 28. In the middle of the summit of Meru is the township of Lord Brahma. Each of its 4 sides is calculated to extend for 10 million yojanas, 80 million miles. It is made entirely of gold, and therefore learned scholars and sages call it Shatakambi. Text 29. Surrounding Brahmapuri in all directions are the residences of the 8 principal governors of the planetary systems, beginning with King Indra. These abodes are similar to Brahmapuri, but are 1/4 the size. Purport. Srila Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur confirms that the townships of Lord Brahma and the 8 subordinate governors of the planetary systems, beginning with Indra, are mentioned in other Puranas. Mirao Navapurani Sur Manovatyamadavati Tejovati Samyamami Tata Krishna Ganapara Shadavati Gadavati Tata Chanya Mahodaya Yashovati Chabarmanda Vayandi Nam Yatakramam. Brahma's township is known as Manuvati, and those of his assistants, such as Indra and Agni, are known as Amaravati, Tejavati, Samyamani, Krishnangana, Shadavati, Gandhavati, Mahodaya, and Yashovati. Brahmapuri is situated in the middle, and the other 8 puris surround it in all directions. Thus end the purport of the 5th canto, 16th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled A Description of Jambudvip.
Chapter 17, the descent of the river Ganges. Text 1. Shukadeva Goswami said, "My dear king, Lord Vishnu, the enjoyer of all sacrifices, appeared as Vamanadev in the sacrificial arena of Bali Maharaj. Then he extended his left foot to the end of the universe and pierced a hole in its covering with the nail of his big toe. Through the hole, the pure water of the causal ocean entered this universe as the Ganges River. Having washed the lotus feet of the Lord, which are covered with reddish powder, the water of the Ganges acquired a very beautiful pink color. Every living being can immediately purify his mind of material contamination by touching the transcendental water of the Ganges. Yet its waters remain ever pure. Because the Ganges directly touches the lotus feet of the Lord before descending within this universe, she is known as Vishnupadi. Later, she received other names like Janavi and Bhagirati. After 1,000 millenniums, the water of the Ganges descended on Dhruvaloka, the topmost planet in this universe. Thereafter, all learned sages and scholars proclaimed Dhruvaloka to be Vishnupad, situated on Lord Vishnu's lotus feet." Purport: in this verse, Shukadeva Goswami describes the glories of the Ganges River. The water of the Ganges is called Patita Pavani, the deliverer of all sinful living beings. It is a proven fact that a person who regularly bathes in the Ganges is purified both externally and internally. Externally, his body becomes immune to all kinds of disease, and internally he gradually develops a devotional attitude toward the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Throughout India, many thousands of people live on the banks of the Ganges, and by regularly bathing in her waters, they are undoubtedly being purified both spiritually and materially. Many sages, including Shankaracharya, have composed prayers in praise of the Ganges, and the land of India itself has become glorious because such rivers as the Ganges, Jamuna, Godavari, Kaveri, Krishna, and Narmada flow there. Anyone living on the land adjacent to these rivers is naturally advanced in spiritual consciousness. Srila Madhvacharya says, "Varahe vama padam tu tat anyeshu tadakshinam padam kalpeshu bhagavan ujahara trivikrama." Standing on his right foot and extending his left to the edge of the universe, Lord Vamana became known as Trivikram, the incarnation who performed 3 heroic deeds. Dhruva Maharaj, the famous son of Maharaj Uttanapada, is known as the most exalted devotee of the Supreme Lord because of his firm determination in executing devotional service. Knowing that the sacred Ganges water washes the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu, Dhruva Maharaj, situated on his own planet, to this very day accepts that water on his head with great devotion. Because he constantly thinks of Krishna very devoutly within the core of his heart, he is overcome with ecstatic anxiety. Tears flow from his half-opened eyes, and eruptions appear on his entire body. Purport: when a person is firmly fixed in devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is described as Viravrata, fully determined. Such a devotee increases his ecstasy in devotional service more and more. Thus, as soon as he remembers Lord Vishnu, his eyes fill with tears. This is a symptom of a Mahabhagavata. Dhruva Maharaj maintains himself in that devotional ecstasy, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also gave us a practical example of transcendental ecstasy when he lived at Jagannath Puri. His pastimes there are fully narrated in Chaitanya Charitamrita. The 7 great sages, Marichi, Vashishta, Atri, and so on, reside on planets beneath Dhruvaloka. Well aware of the influence of the water of the Ganges, to this day they keep Ganges water on the tufts of hair on their heads. They have concluded that this is the ultimate wealth, the perfection of all austerities, and the best means of prosecuting transcendental life. Having obtained uninterrupted devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they neglect all other beneficial processes like religion, economic development, sense gratification, and even merging into the Supreme. Just as Jnanis think that merging into the existence of the Lord is the highest truth. These 7 exalted personalities accept devotional service as the perfection of life. Purport. Transcendentalists are divided into 2 primary groups: the Nirvisheshvadis, or impersonalists, and the Bhaktas, or devotees. The impersonalists do not accept spiritual varieties of life. They want to merge into the existence of the Supreme Lord in His Brahman feature, the Brahmajyoti. The devotees, however, desire to take part in the transcendental activities of the Supreme Lord. In the upper planetary system, the topmost planet is Dhruvaloka, and beneath Dhruvaloka are the 7 planets occupied by the great sages, beginning with Marichi, Vasishta, and Atri. All these sages regard devotional service as the highest perfection of life. Therefore, they all carry the holy water of the Ganges on their heads. This verse proves that for one who has achieved the platform of pure devotional service, nothing else is important, even so-called liberation, kaivalya. Srila Sridhar Swami states that only by achieving pure devotional service of the Lord can one give up all other engagements as insignificant. Prabodhananda Saraswati confirms his statement as follows: Kaivalyam narakayate tridashapur akasha pushpayate durdantendriya kala sarpapatali pratokatas damstrayate vishram purnam sukayate vidi mahindradishcha kirtayate yat karunya kataksha vaibhavatam tam gaudam eva sutumaha. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has perfectly enunciated and broadcast the process of Bhakti Yoga. Consequently, for one who has taken shelter at the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the highest perfection of the Mayavadis, Kaivalya, or becoming one with the Supreme, is considered hellish, to say nothing of the Karmi's aspiration to be promoted to the heavenly planets. Devotees consider such goals to be worthless phantasmagorias. There are also yogis who try to control their senses, but they can never succeed without coming to the stage of devotional service. The senses are compared to poisonous snakes, but the senses of a bhakta engaged in the service of the Lord are like snakes with their poisonous fangs removed. The yogi tries to suppress his senses, but even great mystics like Vishvamrita fail in the attempt. Vishvamrita was conquered by his senses when he was captivated by Menaka during his meditation. She later gave birth to Shakuntala. The wisest persons in the world, therefore, are the Bhakti Yogis, as Lord Krishna confirms in the Bhagavad Gita 6:47. Yoginam api sarvesham madgatanantaratmana shraddhavan bhajate yo mam same yukta tamo mataha. Of all yogis, he who always abides in me with great faith, worshipping me in transcendental loving service, is most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. 4. After purifying the 7 planets near Dhruvaloka, the pole star, the Ganges water is carried through the spaceways of the demigods in billions of celestial airplanes. Then it inundates the moon, Chandraloka, and finally reaches Lord Brahma's abode atop Mount Meru. Purport. We should always remember that the Ganges River comes from the causal ocean, beyond the covering of the universe. After the water of the causal ocean leaks through the hole created by Lord Vamandev, it flows down to Dhruvaloka, the pole star, and then to the 7 planets beneath Dhruvaloka. Then it is carried to the moon by innumerable celestial airplanes, and then it falls to the top of Mount Meru, which is known as Sumeru Parvata. In this way, the water of the Ganges finally reaches the lower planets and the peaks of the Himalayas, and there it flows through Hardwar and through the plains of India, purifying the entire land. How the Ganges water reaches the various planets from the top of the universe is explained herein. Celestial airplanes carry the water from the planets of the sages to other planets. So-called advanced scientists of the modern age are trying to go to the higher planets, but at the same time they are experiencing a power shortage on Earth. If they were actually capable scientists, they could personally go by airplane to other planets. But this they are unable to do. Having now given up their moon excursions, they are attempting to go to other planets, but without success. 5. On top of Mount Meru, the Ganges divides into 4 branches, each of which gushes in a different direction, east, west, north, and south. These branches, known by the names Sita, Alakananda, Chakshu, and Bhadra, flow down to the sea.
Text 6. The branch of the Ganges known as the Sita flows through Brahmapuri, the top Mount Meru. From there it runs down to the nearby peaks of the Kesarachala mountains, which stand almost as high as Mount Meru itself. These mountains are like a bunch of filaments around Mount Meru. From the Kesarachala mountains, the Ganges falls to the peak of Gandhamadana mountain and then flows into the land of Bhadrashra Varsha. Finally, it reaches the ocean of salt water in the east. In the west, sorry. Text 7.
East.
East.
West.
East.
East.
East. East.
East.
East.
That's the rest of it. Corrections east.
East.
Yes. Yeah, it's makes sense. Word for word.
It's in the word for word east.
Should I remember we were anyway. West.
They're trying their best to make it right. Hare Krishna. Translation: the branch of the Ganges known as Chakshu falls under the summit of Malyavan mountain and from there cascades onto the land of Ketumala Varsha. The Ganges flows incessantly through Ketumala Varsha and in this way reaches the ocean of salt water in the west. Text 8. The branch of the Ganges known as Bhadra flows from the northern side of Mount Meru. Its waters fall under the peaks of Kumudu Mountain, Mount Nila, Shweta Mountain, and Shringavan Mountain in succession. Then it runs down into the province of Kuru, and after crossing through that land, flows into the saltwater ocean in the north. Kuru?
It's one of the verses.
It's one of the Varshas.
One of the sons of Priyavrata.
The sons of Priyavrata.
One of the sons of Priyavrata. Text 9. Well done, sir, I might add.
Just talk to that. Thank you.
Similarly, the branch of the Ganges known as Alakananda. Alakananda. Similarly, the branch of the Ganges known as the Alakananda flows from the southern side of Brahmapuri, Brahmasarana, passing over the tops of mountains in various lands. It falls down with fierce force upon the peaks of the mountains Hemakuta and Himakuta. After inundating the tops of those mountains, the Ganges falls down under the tract of land known as Bharatavarsha, which she also inundates. Then the Ganges flows into the ocean of salt water in the south. Persons who come to bathe in this river are fortunate. It is not very difficult for them to achieve with every step the results of performing great sacrifices like the Rajasuya and Ashwamedha yagas. Purport. The place where the Ganges flows into the salt water of the Bay of Bengal is still known as Ganga Sagara, or the meeting place of the Ganges in the Bay of Bengal. On Makara Sankranti, in the month of January, February, thousands of people still go there to bathe, hoping to be liberated. That they can actually be liberated in this way is confirmed herein. For those who bathe in the Ganges at any time, the results of great sacrifices like the Ashwamedha and Rajasuya yogyas are not at all difficult to achieve. Most people in India are still inclined to bathe in the Ganges, and there are many places where they can do so. At Prayag, Allahabad, many thousands of people gather during the month of January to bathe in the confluence of the Ganges and Yamuna. Afterward, many of them go to the confluence of the Bay of Bengal and the Ganges to take bath there. Thus, it is a special facility for all the people of India that they can bathe in the water of the Ganges in so many places of pilgrimage. Text 10. Many other rivers, both big and small, flow from the top of Mount Meru. These rivers are like daughters of the mountain, and they flow to the various tracts of land in hundreds of branches.
Among the 9 Varshas, the tract of land known as Bharatvarsha is understood to be the field of fruit of activities. Learned scholars and saintly persons declare the other 8 Varshas to be meant for very highly elevated pious persons. After returning from the heavenly planets, they enjoy the remaining results of their pious activities in these 8 earthly Varshas. Purport. The heavenly places of enjoyment are divided into 3 groups: the celestial heavenly planets, the heavenly places on earth, and the Bila heavenly places, which are found in the lower regions. Among these 3 classes of heavenly places, Bhauma, Swarga, Padani, the heavenly places on earth are the 8 Varshas other than Bharatvarsha. In Bhagavad Gita 9:21, Krishna says, Shine punye martyalokam vishanti. When the persons living in the heavenly planets exhaust the results of their pious activities, they return to this earth. In this way, they are elevated to the heavenly planets, and then they again fall to the earthly planets. This process is known as Brahmanda Brahmana, wandering up and down throughout the universes. Those who are intelligent, in other words, those who have not lost their intelligence, do not involve themselves in this process of wandering up and down. They take to the devotional service of the Lord so that they can ultimately penetrate the covering of this universe and enter the spiritual kingdom. Then they are situated on one of the planets known as Vaikuntha Loka, or still higher, Krishna Loka, Goloka Vrindavan. Oops. Do you have a period after that, or still higher?
Yes. Still higher.
Okay, then they are situated on, then they are situated on one of the planets known as Vaikuntha Loka, or still higher, should be Kama,
Yeah.
Krishna Loka, Goloka Vrindavan, period.
Make a note.
A devotee is never caught in the process of being promoted to the heavenly planets and again coming down. Therefore, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, E rupe brahmanda brahmate kon bhagyavan jeev Guru Krishna pasade pai bhakti lata bij. Among all the living entities wandering throughout the universe, one who is most fortunate comes in contact with a representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and thus gets the opportunity to execute devotional service. Those who are sincerely seeking the favor of Krishna come in contact with a guru, a bona fide representative of Krishna. The Mayavadis indulging in mental speculation and the karmis desiring the results of their actions cannot become gurus. A guru must be a direct representative of Krishna who distributes the instructions of Krishna without any change. Thus only the most fortunate persons come in contact with the guru. As confirmed in the Vedic literatures, Tadvignanartam Sagurum Eva Bigachet. From the MU, Mundaka Upanishad, 1-2-12. I went to MU. MU, 1-2-12. One, from the Mundaka Upanishad, one has to search out a guru to understand the affairs of the spiritual world. To understand the affairs of the spiritual world. What are their affairs there? You can find that out. Srimad Bhagavatam also confirms this point. Tasmad gurum prapadyeta jignasu shreya uttamam. One who is very interested in understanding the activities in the spiritual world must search out a guru, a bona fide representative of Krishna. From all angles of vision, therefore, the word guru is especially meant for the bona fide representative of Krishna and no one else. Padma Purana states, a Vaishnavo guru na syat. One who is not a Vaishnav, or who is not a representative of Krishna, cannot be a guru. Even the most qualified brahmana cannot become a guru if he is not a representative of Krishna. Brahmanas are supposed to acquire 6 kinds of auspicious qualifications. They become very learned scholars, patana, and very qualified teachers, patana. They become expert in worshipping the Lord of the demigods, yajana, and they teach others how to execute this worship, yajana. They qualify themselves as bona fide persons to receive alms from others, pratigraha, and they distribute the wealth in charity, dana. Yet even a brahmana possessing these qualifications cannot become a guru unless he is the representative of Krishna, guru nasyat, Vaishnava shvapacho guru. But a Vaishnav, a bona fide representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu, can become a guru, even if he is shvapacha, a member of a family of dog-eaters. Of the 3 divisions of heavenly planets, Swargaloka, Bhauma Swarga is sometimes accepted as the tract of land in Bharatvarsha known as Kashmir. In this region, there are certainly good facilities for material sense enjoyment, but this is not the business of a pure transcendentalist. Rupa Goswami describes the engagement of a pure transcendentalist as follows. Anyabhilashita shunyam jnana karmanyana anakulyena krishnanu shilanam bhaktirutama. One should render transcendental loving service to the Supreme Lord Krishna favorably and without desire for material profit or gain through fruitive activities or philosophical speculation. That is called pure devotional service. Those who fully engage in devotional service to Krishna just to please him are not interested in the 3 divisions of heavenly places, namely Divya Swarga, Bhaumya Swarga, and Bila Swarga. In these 8 varshas, the tracts of land, human beings live 10,000 years according to earthly calculations. All the inhabitants are almost like demigods. They have the bodily strength of 10,000 elephants. Indeed, their bodies are as sturdy as thunderbolts. The youthful duration of their lives is very pleasing, and both men and women enjoy sexual union with great pleasure for a long time. After years of sensual pleasure, when a balance of 1 year of life remains, the wife conceives a child. Thus, the standard of pleasure for the residents of these heavenly regions is exactly like that of the human beings who lived during the Treta Yuga. Purport. There are 4 yugas, Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, and Kali Yuga. During the first Yuga, Satya Yuga, people were very pious. Everyone practiced the mystic yoga system for spiritual understanding and realization of God. Because everyone was always absorbed in samadhi, no one was interested in material sense enjoyment. During Treta Yuga, people enjoyed sense pleasure without tribulations. Material miseries began in Dwapara Yuga, but they were not very stringent. Stringent material miseries really began from the advent of Kali Yuga. Another point in this verse is that in all 8 of these heavenly varshas, although men and women enjoy sex pleasure, there is no pregnancy. Pregnancy takes place only in lower grade life. For example, animals like dogs and hogs become pregnant twice a year, and each time they beget at least half a dozen offspring. Even lower species of life, such as snakes, give birth to hundreds of young at one time. This verse informs us that in grades of life higher than ours, pregnancy occurs once in a lifetime. People still have sex life, but there is no pregnancy. In the spiritual world, people are not very attracted to sex life due to their exalted devotional attitude. Practically speaking, there is no sex life in the spiritual world, but even if sometimes it does occur, there is no pregnancy at all. On the planet Earth, however, human beings do become pregnant, although the tendency is to avoid having children. In this sinful age of Kali, people have even taken to the process of killing the child in the womb. This is the most degraded practice. It can only perpetuate the miserable material conditions of those who perform it. Yes, sir?
Two things. Kinshana Krishna Prabhu said he likes it when we all chant the Sanskrit verses together. He said it's super cool.
Oh,
He's just trying to encourage us.
okay.
Thanks.
That's cool.
And I wanted to ask about that. The child, those heavenly lifespans. They don't have the child. They live 1,000 years, right? Or 10,000. But the child isn't conceived till the last year of their life. So, do we have any information on how that works? Like, the child is then raised by the.
Navina.
We have examples from the Bhagavatam how some of these higher rates, the child develops very fast. And so it's not like, oh, the child just really misses out, you know. They're going to be 1 year old when their parents die. What a bummer. They grow mature in 1 day, you know, practically.
So Navina was saying that the children,
they're fully developed.
there's evidence in other part of the scriptures,
It's not all that goo goo gaga. You know.
children grow up really quickly in those regions. So it's not that
We
they're
have examples in the Bhagavad.
abandoned. I said that. Okay? In each of those tracts of land, there are many gardens filled with flowers and fruits according to the season, and there are beautifully decorated hermitages as well. Between the great mountains demarcating the borders of those lands lie enormous lakes of clear water filled with newly grown lotus flowers. Aquatic birds such as swans, ducks, water chickens, and cranes become greatly excited by the fragrance of lotus flowers, and the charming sound of bumblebees fills the air. The inhabitants of these lands are important leaders among the demigods. Always attended by their respective servants, they enjoy life in gardens alongside the lakes. In this pleasing situation, the wives of the demigods smile playfully at their husbands and look upon them with lusty desires. All the demigods and their wives are constantly supplied with sandalwood pulp and flower garlands by their servants. In this way, all the residents of the 8 heavenly varshas enjoy, attracted by the activities of the opposite sex. Purport. Here is a description of the heavenly places on earth. The inhabitants of those tracts of land enjoy in a pleasing atmosphere of clear lakes filled with newly grown lotus flowers and gardens filled with fruits, flowers, various kinds of birds, and humming bees. In that atmosphere, they enjoy life with their very beautiful wives, who are always sexually stimulated. Nonetheless, they are all devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as will be explained in subsequent verses. The inhabitants of Bharatvarsha also desire such heavenly enjoyment, but when they somehow or other achieve imitation pleasures like sex and intoxication, they completely forget the service of the Supreme Lord. In the heavenly places on earth, however, although the residents enjoy superior sense gratification, they never forget their positions as eternal servants of the Supreme Being. To show mercy to his devotees in each of these 9 tracts of land, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, known as Narayan, expands himself in his quadruple principles of Vasudeva, Sankarshana, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. In this way, he remains near his devotees to accept their service. Purport. In this connection, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur informs us that the demigods worship the Supreme Lord in his various deity forms, Archa Vigraha, because except in the spiritual world, the Supreme Personality of Godhead cannot be directly worshipped in person. In the material world, the Lord is always worshipped as the Archa Vigraha, or deity in the temple. There is no difference between the Archa Vigraha and the original person, and therefore, those who are engaged in worshipping the deity in the temple in full opulence, even on this planet, should be understood to be directly in touch with the Supreme Personality of Godhead without a doubt. As enjoined in the Shastras, Archye Vishnau Shiladhir Gurushu Naramati. Let's do it for Akinchana. Arche Vishnau Shiladhir Gurushu Naramati. No one should treat the deity in the temple as stone or metal, nor should one think that the spiritual master is an ordinary human being. One should strictly follow this shastric injunction and worship the deity, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, without offenses. The spiritual master is the direct representative of the Lord, and no one should consider him an ordinary human being. By avoiding offenses against the deity and the spiritual master, one can advance in spiritual life or Krishna consciousness. In this regard, the following quotation appears in the Laghu Bhagavatamrita. Quote, in the Padma Purana it is said that in the spiritual world the Lord personally expands in all directions and is worshipped as Vasudeva, Sankarshana, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. The same God is represented by the deity in the material world, which is only 1/4 of his creation. Vasudeva, Sankarshana, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha are also present in the 4 directions of this material world. There is a Vaikuntha Loka covered with water in this material world, and on that planet is a place called Vedavati, wherein Vasudeva is located. Another planet, known as Vishnu Loka, is situated above Satyaloka, and there Shankarshana is present. Similarly, in Dwarkapuri, Pradyumna is the predominator. On the island known as Shwetadweep, there is an ocean of milk, and in the midst of that ocean is a place called Airavatipura. There Aniruddha lies on Ananta. Where Aniruddha lies on Ananta. In some of the Sattvata Tantras, there is a description of the 9 Varshas and the predominating deity worshipped in each. 1. Vasudeva. 2. Sankarshana. 3. Pradyumna. 4. Aniruddha. 5. Narayana. 6. Nrsimha. 7. Hayagriva. 8. Mahavaraha. And 9. Brahma. The Lord Brahma mentioned in this connection is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When there is no fit human being to empower as Lord Brahma, the Lord himself takes the position of Lord Brahma. Tatra Brahma tu vigyeya purvakta vidhaya hari. That Brahma mentioned here is Hari himself. 15. Question.
Prabhupada says in the purport that except in the spiritual world, the Supreme Personality of Godhead can be directly worshipped in person. I seem to remember in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita that when Gopakumar is reaching the topmost planets, he's meeting the Lord, or was it the abode of liberation, where he's meeting the Lord directly?
There is an incarnation of Mahavishnu in Brahmaloka. He's called Mahapurusha, and he's got 1,000 arms, 1,000 or something. But he just sees him, periodically, just for a few minutes, and then he goes back into his quarters. But he does watch Brahma worshipping him directly and receiving his offerings directly.
"15. Shukadeva Goswami said, in the tract of land known as Ilavrtavarsha, the only male person is Lord Shiva, the most powerful demigod. Goddess Durga, the wife of Lord Shiva, does not like any man to enter that land. If any foolish man dares to do so, she immediately turns him into a woman. I shall explain this later in the 9th canto, the Srimad Bhagavatam."
Text 16. In Ilavrtavarsha, Lord Shiva is always encircled by 10 billion maidservants of Goddess Durga who minister to him. The quadruple expansion of the Supreme Lord is composed of Vasudeva, Pradyumna, Aniruddha, and Sankarshana. Sankarshana, the 4th expansion, is certainly transcendental, but because his activities of destruction in the material world are in the mode of ignorance, he is known as Tamasi, the Lord's form in the mode of ignorance. Lord Shiva knows that Sankarsana is the original cause of his own existence, and thus he always meditates upon him in trance by chanting the following mantra. Purport. Sometimes we see a picture of Lord Shiva engaged in meditation. This verse explains that Lord Shiva is always meditating upon Lord Sankarsana in trance. Lord Shiva is in charge of the destruction of the material world. Lord Brahma creates the material world, Lord Vishnu maintains it, and Lord Shiva destroys it. Because destruction is in the mode of ignorance, Lord Shiva and his worshipable deity Sankarsana are technically called Tamasi. Lord Shiva is the incarnation of Tamoguna. Since both Lord Shiva and Sankarsana are always enlightened and situated in the transcendental position, they have nothing to do with the modes of material nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance. But because their activities involve them with the mode of ignorance, they are sometimes called Tamasi. Text 17. The most powerful Lord Shiva says, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you in your expansion as Lord Sankarsana. You are the reservoir of all transcendental qualities. Although you are unlimited, you remain unmanifest to the non-devotees. Text 18. O my Lord, you are the only worshipable person, for you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the reservoir of all opulences. Your secure lotus feet are the only source of protection for all your devotees, whom you satisfy by manifesting yourself in various forms. O my Lord, you deliver your devotees from the clutches of material existence. Non-devotees, however, remain entangled in material existence by your will. Kindly accept me as your eternal servant. Text 19. We cannot control the force of our anger. Therefore, when we look at material things, we cannot avoid feeling attraction or repulsion for them. But the Supreme Lord is never affected in this way. Although he glances over the material world for the purpose of creating, maintaining, and destroying it, he is not affected, even to the slightest degree. Therefore, one who desires to conquer the force of the senses must take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. Then he will be victorious. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is always equipped with inconceivable potencies. Although creation takes place by his glancing over the material energy, he is not affected by the modes of material nature. Because of his eternally transcendental position, when the Supreme Personality of Godhead appears in this material world, the modes of material nature cannot affect him. Therefore, the Supreme Lord is called Transcendence, and anyone who wants to be secure from the influence of the modes of material nature must take shelter of him. Text 20. For persons with impure vision, the Supreme Lord's eyes appear like those of someone who indiscriminately drinks intoxicating beverages. Thus bewildered, such unintelligent persons become angry at the Supreme Lord, and due to their angry mood, the Lord himself appears angry and very fearful. However, this is an illusion. When the wives of the serpent demon were agitated by the touch of the Lord's lotus feet, due to shyness, they could proceed no further in their worship of him. Yet the Lord remained unagitated by their touch, for he is equipoised in all circumstances. Therefore, who will not worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Purport. Anyone who remains unagitated, even in the presence of cause for agitation, is called dhira, or equipoised. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, being always in a transcendental position, is never agitated by anything. Therefore, someone who wants to become Dhira must take shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Dhiras tatra yamuyati. A person who is equipoised in all circumstances is never bewildered. Prahlad Maharaj is a perfect example of a Dhira. When the fierce form of Nrsingadev appeared in order to kill Hiranyakashipu, Prahlad was unagitated. He remained calm and quiet, whereas others, including even Lord Brahma, were frightened by the features of the Lord. Lord Shiva continued, all the great sages accept the Lord as this. All the great sages accept the Lord as the source of creation, maintenance, and destruction, although He actually has nothing to do with these activities. Therefore, the Lord is called unlimited. Although the Lord, in His incarnation as Shesha, holds all the universes on His hoods, each universe feels no heavier than a mustard seed to Him. Therefore, what person desiring perfection will not worship the Lord? Purport. The incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, known as Shesha or Ananta, has unlimited strength, fame, wealth, knowledge, beauty, and renunciation. As described in this verse, Ananta's strength is so great that the innumerable universes rests on his hoods. He has the bodily features of a snake with thousands of hoods, and since his strength is unlimited, all the universes resting on his hoods feel no heavier than mustard seeds. We can just imagine how insignificant a mustard seed is on the hood of a serpent. In this connection, the reader is referred to Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila, chapter 5, verses 117 through 125. There it is stated that Lord Vishnu's incarnation as the serpentine Anantashesha Naga supports all the universes on his hoods. By our calculation, the universe may be very, very heavy, but because the Lord is Ananta, unlimited, He feels the weight to be no heavier than a mustard seed. Text 22 and 23. From that Supreme Personality of Godhead appears Lord Brahma, whose body is made from the total material energy, the reservoir of intelligence, predominated by the passionate mode of material nature. From Lord Brahma, I myself am born as a representation of false ego known as Rudra. By my own power, I create all the other demigods, the 5 elements, and the senses. Therefore, I worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is greater than any of us, and under whose control are situated all the demigods, material elements, and senses, and even Lord Brahma and I myself, like birds bound by a rope. Only by the Lord's grace can we create, maintain, and annihilate the material world. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Being. Purport. A summary of creation is given in this verse. From Sankarsana, Mahavishnu expands, and from Mahavishnu, Garbhodakashayi Vishnu expands. Lord Brahma, who was born from Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, fathers Lord Shiva, from whom all the other demigods gradually evolve. Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and Lord Vishnu are incarnations of the different material qualities. Lord Vishnu is actually above all material qualities, but he accepts control of Sattvaguna, the mode of goodness, to maintain the universe. Lord Brahma is born from the Mahatattva. Brahma creates the entire universe. Lord Vishnu maintains it, and Lord Shiva annihilates it. The Supreme Personality of Godhead controls all the most important demigods, especially Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, exactly as the owner of a bird controls it by binding it with a rope. Sometimes vultures are controlled in this way. text 24. The illusory energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead binds all of us conditioned souls to this material world. Therefore, without being favored by Him, persons like us cannot understand how to get out of that illusory energy. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the Lord, who is the cause of creation and annihilation. Purport. Krishna clearly states in Bhagavad Gita, Daivyesha gunamayi mama maya duratyaya mamivaye prapadyante mayamitam tarantite. This divine energy of mind, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome. But those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. All conditioned souls, working within the illusory energy of the Lord, consider the body to be the self, and thus they continuously wander throughout the universe, taking birth in different species of life and creating more and more problems. Sometimes they become disgusted with the problems and seek out a process by which they can get out of this entanglement. Unfortunately, such so-called research workers are unaware of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and His illusory energy, and thus all of them work only in darkness, never finding a way out. So-called scientists and advanced research scholars are ludicrously trying to find the cause of life. They take no notice of the fact that life is already being produced. What will be their credit if they find out the chemical composition of life? All their chemicals are nothing but different transformations of the five elements: earth, water, fire, air, and ether. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, the living entity is never created. Najayate, mriyate, bhakadachin, unless you want to read the 1972 version of the Bhagavad Gita, wherein it will be taught, once having been, he'll never cease to be. Oh yes. There are 5 gross material elements and 3 minor material elements: mind, intelligence, and ego. And there are eternal living entities. The living entity desires a certain type of body, and by the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that body is created from material nature, which is nothing but a kind of machine handled by the Supreme Lord. The Lord gives the living entity a particular type of mechanical body, and the living entity must work within it according to the law of fruitive activities. What? Must work with it. Pardon me. This is the fact checker. I'd like you to meet him. His name is Samyapras, that great Brahmana from Bhattarakasha. Oh, I'm sorry. New Bhattarakasha. Thanks for the fact checker.
Referee.
The Lord gives the living entity a particular kind of mechanical body, and the living entity must work with it according to the law of fruitive activities. Fruitive activities are described in this verse: karma pravinanim mayam, karma parvanim mayam. The living entity is seated on a machine, the body, and according to the law of the Supreme Lord, He operates the machine. What? The order. Did I say law? Okay, mark that down. 5 yards. I'm back to the 15, trying to get back to midfield. The living entity is seated on a machine, the body, and according to the order of the Supreme Lord, He operates the machine. According to the order of the Supreme Lord, He operates the machine. This is the secret of transmigration of the soul from one body to another. The living entity thus becomes entangled in fruitive activities in this material world. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, Manakshastanindriyani prakritistani karshati. The living entity is struggling very hard against the 6 senses, which include the mind. In all the activities of creation and annihilation, the living entity is entangled in fruitive activities which are executed by the illusory energy Maya. He is exactly like a computer handled by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The so-called scientists say that nature acts independently, but they cannot explain what nature is. Nature is nothing but a machine operated by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When one understands the operator, his problems of life are solved. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Bahunam janmanamante yanavan mam prapadyate vasudevasya pamiti samahatma sadurlavaha. After many births and deaths, he who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes and all that is. Such a great soul is very rare. A sane man, therefore, surrenders under the Supreme Personality of Godhead and thus gets out of the clutches of the illusory energy, Maya. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the fifth canto, 17th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Descent of the River Ganges.
And that brings us to the cow break. We'll be back here at 2 minutes after 5 o'clock. We're continuing with our reading of the Srimad Bhagavatam at Canto 5, Chapter 18, text number 1, the prayers offered to the Lord by the residents of Jambudvip. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Sri Shukadev Goswami said, Bhadrashrava, the son of Dharmaraj, rules the tract of land known as Bhadrashrava Varsha, just as Lord Shiva worships Sankarsana in Ilavrata Varsha. Bhadrashrava, accompanied by his intimate servants and all the residents of the land, worships the plenary expansion of Vasudeva known as Hayashirsha. Lord Hayashirsha is very dear to the devotees, and he is the director of all religious principles. Fixed in the topmost trance, Bhadrashrava and his associates offer their respectful obeisances to the Lord and chant the following prayers with careful pronunciation. The ruler of Bhadrashrava and his intimate associates utter the following prayer. We offer our respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the reservoir of all religious principles, who cleanses the heart of the conditioned soul in the material world. Again and again we offer our respectful obeisances unto him. Purport. Foolish materialistic persons do not know how they are being controlled and punished at every step by the laws of nature. They think they are very happy in the conditioned state of material life, not knowing the purpose of repeated birth, death, old age, and disease. Therefore, in Bhagavad Gita 7.15, Lord Krishna describes such materialistic persons as mudhas, rascals. Namamduskritinu mudha prapnate naradama. These mudhas do not know that if they want to purify themselves, they must worship Lord Vasudeva Krishna by performing penances and austerities. This purification is the aim of human life. This life is not meant for blind indulgence in sense gratification. In the human form, the living being must engage himself in Krishna consciousness to purify his existence. Tapo divyam putraka yena sattvam shudyet. This is the instruction of King Rishabhadeva to his sons. In the human form of life, one must undergo all kinds of austerities to purify his existence. Yasmad brahma saukyam tvanant. That's about as loud as it can get. We are all seeking happiness. Although we may so-called happiness in this material world, that happiness is temporary. Although we may get some so-called happiness in this material world, that happiness is temporary.
There's a sentence that's been added, or
unobstructed happiness is called Brahma Saukyam, spiritual happiness.
There's a sentence here, we're all seeking happiness, but because of our ignorance and foolishness, we cannot know what unobstructed happiness really is.
Yes.
his property, and if his son dies, he wants to enjoy his son's possessions as well. In either case, he heedlessly tries to enjoy material happiness with the acquired money. Purport: material happiness means to have good facilities for eating, sleeping, sexual intercourse, and defense. Within this world, the materialistic person lives only for these four principles of sense gratification, not caring for the impending danger of death. After his father's death, the son tries to inherit his money and use it for sense gratification. Similarly, one whose son dies tries to enjoy the possessions of his son. Sometimes the father Lord gives him the sanction to act at his own risk. Matak smitir ganam apohanam cha. No one can do anything without the sanction of the Lord. But he is so kind that when the conditioned soul persists in doing something, the Lord permits the individual soul to act at his own risk. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, sons always outlive their fathers in other planetary systems and other lands in this universe, especially on Swargaloka. However, on this planet Earth, a son often dies before his father, and the materialistic father is
He also says Matak Smriti Jnanam Apanamcha. There's a rule in Harinama Vyakarana of Goswami. It breaks down how that changes according to what the next letter is.
Yes.
For those who are technically inclined.
O unborn one, learned Vedic scholars who are advanced in spiritual knowledge certainly know. O unborn one, learned Vedic scholars who are advanced in spiritual knowledge certainly know that this material world is perishable, as a realization. As soon as someone thinks, I am this material body, aham mimeti, and everything in relationship with this body is mine, he is an illusion, moha. This illusion caused by the material energy acts especially on the conditioned souls, but it sometimes also acts on liberated souls as well. A liberated soul is a person who has sufficient knowledge of this material world and is therefore unattached to the bodily conception of life. But because of association with the modes and another as the Brahmana Jad Bharat. Afterwards, he was liberated and went back home, back to Godhead. The Lord is always prepared to The Lord is always prepared to excuse his devotee, but if a devotee takes advantage of the Lord's leniency and purposefully commits mistakes again and again, the Lord will certainly punish him by letting him fall down into the clutches of the illusory energy. In other words, theoretical knowledge acquired by studying the Vedas is insufficient.
At the end of the millennium, ignorance personified assumed the form of a demon, stole all the Vedas, and took them down to the planet of Rasatala. The Supreme Lord, however, in his form of Hayagriva, retrieved the Vedas and returned them to Lord Brahma when he begged for them. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Lord, whose determination never fails. Purport. The tract of land known as Harivarsha. In the 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, I shall describe to you how Prahlad Maharaj caused the Lord to assume the form of Nishingadev. Prahlad Maharaj, the topmost devotee of the Lord, is a reservoir of all the good qualities of great personalities. His character and activities have delivered all the fallen members of his demoniac family. Lord Nishingadev is very Lakshapriteshu Surabir Abhipalayantam Lakshmi Sahasra Shatasam Brahmasevyamanam Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, the first progenitor, who is tending the cows, yielding all desires, in abodes built with spiritual gems and surrounded by millions of Shukadev Goswami refers to Nishingadev because of Prahlad Maharaj. Prahlad Maharaj was put into great distress by his powerful father, the demon Hiranyakashipu. Apparently helpless before him, Prahlad Maharaj called on the Lord. Apparently helpless before him, Prahlad Maharaj called on the Lord, who immediately assumed the gigantic Abhayam Abhayam Atmani Bhuyishta Om Shraum. Translation. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Lord Nrishingadev, the source of all power. O my Lord, who possess nails and teeth just like thunderbolts, kindly vanquish to his fullest satisfaction. For this purpose, the conditioned soul must accept one body after another. And thus, his strongly fixed fruitive desires continue. One cannot stop the repetition of birth and death without being completely desireless. Therefore, Srila Rupa Goswami describes pure bhakti, devotional service, as follows. To Lord Nrishingadev, who killed Hiranyakashipu, the personification of material desire. Hiranya means gold, and Kashipu means a soft cushion or bed. Materialistic persons always desire to make the body comfortable, and for this they require huge amounts of gold. Thus, Hiranyakashipu was the perfect representative of materialistic life. He was the Supreme Transcendence, Lord Sri Krishna, and always remain absorbed in thought of Him. What a wonderful verse.
Yeah.
Whoa. I'm going to read that again. That was too good. May there be good fortune throughout the universe, and may all envious persons be pacified. May all living entities become calm by practicing bhakti yoga, for by he always thought of the welfare of mischievous persons, like his father, Hiranyakashipu. Prahlad Maharaj did not ask anything for himself. Rather, he prayed for the Lord to excuse his demoniac father. This is the attitude of a Vaishnava, who always thinks of the welfare of the entire universe. Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavata Dharma to sit in our hearts. We should pray, Bahir Nishingo Ridaye Nishinga. Let Lord Nishingadev sit in the core of my heart, killing all my bad propensities. Let my mind become clean, so that I may peacefully worship the Lord and bring peace to the entire world. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has given us a very fine purport in this regard. Whenever one offers after life, kindly let me have unalloyed love and devotion at your Lordship's lotus feet. When Prahlad Maharaj chants Om Namo Bhagavate Narasingaya, he prays for a benediction from the Lord, but because he is also an exalted Vaishnava, he wants nothing for his personal sense gratification. The first desire expressed in his prayer is father, and other demons like him would give up their envious nature, and by the grace of the Lord, and stop harassing the devotees. Kalat prasidatam. The difficulty is that the kala, envious living entity, is rarely pacified. One kind of kala, the snake, can be pacified simply by mantras or by the action of a particular one is envious of anyone else. I'll repeat that. But in Krishna consciousness, no one is envious of anyone else. Everyone thinks of the welfare of others. Therefore, Prahlad Maharaj prays that everyone's mind may become gentle by being fixed at the lotus feet of Krishna, Bhajatad Adhokshaje. As indicated elsewhere in Srimad Bhagavatam, Savai Manak that the Lord's mercy will change their minds and they will stop thinking of sense gratification. If they think of Krishna always, everything will be all right. Some people argue that if everyone thought of Krishna in that way, then the whole universe will be vacated because everyone would go back home, back to Godhead. I was on a morning walk with Prabhupada and somebody asked that question. What if? Srila Prabhupada said, yes, shut down the universe, no problem, because it's like one mustard seed in a bag full of mustard seeds. Who will notice? Chevy Hills Park, I think it was December of 73 or something like that. However, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that this is impossible because the living entities are innumerable. If one set of living entities is actually delivered by the Krishna consciousness movement, another set will fill the entire universe. Text 10. My dear Lord, we pray that we may never feel attraction for the prison family life, consisting of home, wife, children, friends, bank balance, relatives, and so on. If we do have some attachment, let it be for devotees, whose only dear friend is Krishna. A person who is actually self-realized and who has controlled his mind is perfectly satisfied with the bare necessities of life. He does not try to gratify his senses. Such a person quickly advances in Krishna consciousness, whereas others who are too attached to material things find advancement very difficult. Purport. When Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was requested to explain the duty of a Vaishnava, a Krishna conscious person, he immediately said, Asat Sangatyag a Vaishnava Achara. The first business of a Vaishnava is to give up the association of persons who are not devotees of Krishna and who are too attached to material things, wife, children, bank balance, and so on. Prahlad Maharaj also prays to the personality of Godhead that he may avoid the association of non-devotees attached to the materialistic way of life. If he must be attached to someone, he prays to be attached only to a devotee. A devotee is not interested in unnecessarily increasing the demands of the senses for gratification. Of course, as long as one is in this material world, one must have a material body, and it must be maintained for executing devotional service. The body can be maintained very easily by eating Krishna prasad. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Patram pushpam palam toyam yomi bhaktya priyachiti tadaham bhaktyuparitam ashnami prayatatmanaha. If one offers me with love and devotion a leaf, a flower, fruit, or water, I will accept it. Why should the menu be unnecessarily increased for the satisfaction of the tongue? Devotees should eat as simply as possible. Otherwise, attachment for material things will gradually increase, and the senses, being very strong, will soon require more and more material enjoyment. Then the real business of life, to advance in Krishna consciousness, will stop. Sorry.
That wasn't your shalagram.
That wasn't a shot. Marble.
This is the
Oh, okay. We'll take some reflections now. Anything that you heard so far that stuck? Yes, Nagar Kirtan Prabhu?
There was one, it was quite a bit earlier, it was mentioning how that, I think something along the lines of the devotees don't fear death. And, oh no, it was the opposite. It was talking about how materialistic people don't fear death. They don't think about it. They just kind of ignore it, and therefore they don't consider impending death, something along those lines. And so I was just thinking, it's kind of nice because there's you can see there's like the materialists who completely ignore death, and therefore they're not exactly afraid of it in that sense. And then there's the devotees who are actually fully aware of death, but they're not afraid of it. And for us, for sadhakas, it's our job to become fully aware of death and to feel that fear and then to transcend it. So I was just thinking about how those different stages are there of becoming aware and fearful of death and ignoring death and then transcending it. That was just some thoughts that I had.
Thank you. Havi Prabhu?
In verse 9 of this chapter, Prabhupada pours his heart. Prabhupada pours his heart in such a huge way, which when he speaks about the welfare of others, yes, that strikes quite a note in my heart. And I just wanted to share that.
Thank you. I'd like to point to that a Vaishnava is not envious of anyone.
Not envious of anyone.
That prayer was so beautiful.
Yeah, the point that struck me about that prayer was not only that he's not envious of anyone, but he always thinks of the welfare of everyone. He always thinks of the welfare of everyone. And I'm thinking that if we're in that consciousness, then wherever we go, whoever we will meet, we will see that person as a potential devotee or as a soul. That's what Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Yajgatva na punarmoham evam yasasi pandava yena bhutanya sheshani drakshasya manyato mayi. When we've actually received this knowledge from the self-realized soul, then we will never again fall into illusion, because we will see that all living beings are but a part of the Supreme, or in other words, Krishna says, they are mine. So we can...
What about your godbrothers that you're angry with?
Excuse me? I'm not angry with any of godbrothers. What are you talking about?
You sure?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, sometimes if we see a godbrother acting in a way that seems to us to be impeding the movement, or especially speaking ill of other Vaishnavas and causing harm to themselves and others and even to the movement, then of course we'll feel some negative emotion, but not that we
What is
want
that
to
negative
help those people. Anger. But it's not material anger, because we want the person to
I
be
just
helped.
wanted to have a balanced view of this. We're human beings. We have various kinds of interactions.
Well, I'm trying to balance it.
You're doing quite a good job. I'm just.
Well, thanks.
That's all.
Don't think I don't appreciate that help.
Okay.
Can you balance it out?
Can I balance it out? Well, there's quite a few relationships that we have, and I mean, just the theoretical side about wanting to have welfare towards everyone, feeling a sense of welfare towards everyone, and then there may be instances where, as Maharaj said, one feels that somebody's acting in a contrary way for the interest, or we perceive some that they're projecting their agenda through false ego. That's a disturbance to the devotees, or something like that. Then, of course, it depends what one's position is. But one has to, in some cases, one has to do the needful to communicate with such persons. And the best way I've found to do that, when there's a difference of opinion, and maybe even a modicum of annoyance towards such a person, is to use nonviolent communication. To make the point, not to harbor it, not talk behind the person's back, but to deal with it directly, straightforwardly, but without ascribing any intention to the person, and not using ad hominem attacks, not attacking their personal character, but what you perceive to be out of alignment with the Shastra and with the purpose of the movement and things like that. And those are more frequent than one would think. That just have welfare towards everyone, feel welfare towards everyone, and there is a sense of feeling welfare towards, for instance, we're just using an example, a godbrother who we feel is out of alignment and could be causing problems. I'm just using an example. Yeah. Well, to himself and to other people too. Yeah. I mean, we may be concerned about the progress of the movement in certain ways, and the person is disturbing that. So, we have to deal with it in a straightforward way, and that happens a lot. So, the balance is that we have to be able to deal with it and compartmentalize, and at the same time feel that sense that of welfare ultimately towards the person. Have two different kinds of approaches. One is the immediate approach, and the other is the long-term approach, seeing that they're a living entity who's also on a sojourn in this world, and who will be dealt with by Krishna in the long run.
May I point out a statement by Krishna in what we just read that
we
verifies what you just said in a very wonderful way? He said, if the soul, he comes and he feels the welfare for everyone, but if the soul insists on doing something nonsense against his own effort, then he sanctions it out of love for the soul and out of like a fatherly feeling for the soul, so that person will eventually, and it's for the good of the soul, because eventually, the person will come back to him, and he doesn't want the person to suffer, but I mean that Krishna is ultimately the friend of everyone, but he's also the one who's sanctioning people for doing things that they're insistent on doing that are going to be bad for them and even other people. Supreme neutral position.
As evidence for that, Krishna says in the 16th chapter, after describing so many qualities of the demoniac person, it's only when he describes how they commit offenses against others and how he's situated in everyone's heart, but they're committing. He says, Ahankaram balang darpam kamam krotam chasangshutaha. They take shelter of false ego, strength, pride, all these things, anger. Mam atma paradeheshu pradvishanto pisuyakaha. They offend me in other person's bodies. Then he says, Tanahang dvishatakuran sangsareshu naratmang kshipami. Then I cast them into, kind of a cosmic timeout by putting them into a different situation, in a hellish condition, lower life, a covered consciousness. So he shows that value system. You can't play nice with others, and then you have to,
take a time out. It's also mentioned in the Bhagavatam 11th canto in the verse which describes the ways that we should deal with various entities in the world. That when we meet somebody who's averse to devotional service, we should be upeksha, we should avoid them. And in the commentaries, which are extensive on that verse in the 11th canto, the acharyas say this also refers to somebody who's a devotee, who is of bad character. And we should also not feel obliged to associate with somebody who's a bad character. We can appreciate the fact that they are a devotee, but from a distance, we're not obligated to associate with them. Other points? Yes. Please pass this back.
In the last verse of the 17th chapter in the purport, where Prabhupada mentioned that the so-called scientists and advanced research scholars are ludicrously trying to find the cause of life, they take no notice of the fact that the life is already being produced. I was just appreciating that, there are many other places throughout the Bhagavatam where Prabhupada very strongly talks about the modern scientist. And this morning we were hearing from His Grace Harisari Prabhu at Krishna Balaram Temple where he was making a point that Srila Prabhupada throughout his life, he was very, there are certain things he was very particular, and especially towards the scientist. So there was a wonderful point shared that towards the last pastimes of Srila Prabhupada, when he came back from London, he was in Bombay and he was not feeling well. Nobody was allowed to meet him, and he said, no, I don't want to meet anybody. He just came back from somewhere. But when Sarup Damodar Prabhu came, Maharaj came, he said, yeah, absolutely, let him in. And Prabhupada kept talking to him, and he said that please, I want you to push this forward. And Sarup Damodar, and he asked Maharaj, how much money do you need? You tell me, how much do you need? It's 10,000, and then Maharaj said that $10,000. He said, yeah, BBD will give you, but is that enough? Do you need more? So I was just thinking that Prabhupada was ready to go to any extent for the matters which could affect the world in a very serious and a dramatic way to bring about revolution in terms of Krishna consciousness. So that was one point. The other point was in the 9th verse of the 18th chapter. I really like this line of Srila Prabhupada where he says that however, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that this is impossible because the living entities are innumerable. If one set of living entities is actually delivered by Krishna consciousness movement, another set will fill the entire universe. So I was just thinking there's always an opportunity for book distribution, if not in this universe, in the sense like, how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is always praying for the service to the Lord. So I was just thinking that there could very well be, Sankirtan in many other universes which are needed where the souls are conditioned. So I was just thinking about these two points.
I was really appreciating this section about Mahaprasadam. And Srila Prabhupada says, I hope I have it. He says the body can be maintained very easily by eating Krishna Prasad. And devotees should eat as simply as possible, otherwise attachment for material things will gradually increase, and the senses being very strong will soon require more and more material enjoyment. Then the real business of life to advance in Krishna consciousness will stop. And I was just appreciating the mercy of, so like prasadam we're experiencing here, it's so simple, but it's so satisfying. And it's like, it's so nice. Even though it's so simple, it's so nice that there's like practically nothing better in the world that you could eat. And it satisfies the senses so much that they're just completely pacified, and then we can peacefully engage in hearing. Jai.
Yes, sir. Point. Close. Almost. Continuing.
Nice verse. To read the Sanskrit.
What's that?
This verse which you read the Sanskrit.
You would like to read all the Sanskrit?
For this one.
Go ahead. Bahu samspashatam himanasam haratyachontam shvitidirgatam tritam vaisesika mukunda vikramam. By associating with persons for whom the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Mukunda, is the all-in-all, one can hear of his powerful activities and soon come to understand them. The activities of Mukunda are so potent that simply of hearing of them, one immediately associates with the Lord. For a person who constantly and very eagerly hears narrations of the Lord's powerful activities, the absolute truth, the personality of God in the form of sound vibrations, enters within his heart and cleanses it of all contamination. On the other hand, although bathing in the Ganges diminishes bodily contaminations and infections, this process and the process of visiting holy places can cleanse the heart only after a long time. Therefore, who is the sane man who will not associate with devotees to quickly perfect his life? Purport: bathing in the Ganges can certainly cure one of many infectious diseases, but it cannot cleanse one's materially attached mind, which creates all kinds of contaminations in material existence. However, one who directly associates with the Supreme Lord by hearing of his activities cleanses the dirt from his mind and very soon comes to Krishna consciousness. Sutta Goswami confirms this in Srimad Bhagavatam 1.2.17. Shrinvatam sukata Krishna punya shravana kirtana nityam taksto hibhadrani vidunoti suhritsatam. The Supreme Lord within everyone's heart becomes very pleased when a person hears narrations of his activities, and he personally cleanses the dirt from the mind of the listener. Hridyantaksto hibhadrani vidunoti. He washes off all the dirt from the mind. Material existence is caused by dirty things within the mind. If one can cleanse his mind, he immediately comes to his original position of Krishna consciousness, and thus his life becomes successful. Therefore, all of the great saints in the devotional line very strongly recommend the process of hearing. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu introduced the congregational chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra to give everyone a chance to hear Krishna's holy name. For simply by hearing Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, one becomes purified, Cheto Darpana Marjana. Therefore, our Krishna consciousness movement is chiefly engaged in chanting the Hare Krishna mantra all over the world. After one's mind becomes cleansed by chanting Hare Krishna, one gradually comes to the platform of Krishna consciousness, and then reads books like Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, and the Nectar of Devotion. In this way, one becomes more and more purified of material contamination. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 1.2.18, Nashta praeshu bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishviki. By regularly hearing the Bhagavatam and rendering service unto the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is practically destroyed, and loving service unto the glorious Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. In this way, simply by hearing of the powerful activities of the Lord, the devotee's heart becomes almost completely cleansed of material contamination, and thus his original position as an eternal servant, who is part and parcel of the Lord, becomes manifest. While the devotee engages in devotional service, the passionate and ignorant modes of material nature are gradually vanquished, and then he acts only in the mode of goodness. At that time, he becomes happy and gradually advances in Krishna consciousness. All the great acharyas strongly recommend that people be given a chance to hear about the Supreme Lord. Then success is assured. The more we cleanse the dirt of material attachment from our hearts, the more we will be attracted by Krishna's name, form, qualities, paraphernalia, and activities. This is the sum and substance of the Krishna consciousness movement.
Jai.
Yes?
I was just wondering about the point that we know that the Ganges is not as, bathing in the Ganges or the holy rivers is not as purifying as chanting. Chanting is more efficacious, but it still purifies one after a long time. But Prabhupada just said there that it cannot cleanse the contamination of the mind. So is it just that it takes a long time, or there's a certain point where it can't reach, it cannot purify the mind?
Takes a long time.
Takes a long time, that's it.
Okay, thank you.
Takes a long time. There's another verse that says just by seeing an actual liberated soul, for an instance,
Right.
you get more purification and all of that.
All the demigods in their exalted... Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavati akinchana sarva gunastatra samasate sura arabha bhaktasya kuto mahaguna manoratena satitavato bhi. All the demigods in their exalted qualities such as religion, knowledge, and renunciation become manifest in the body of one who has developed unalloyed devotion for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva. On the other hand, a person devoid of devotional service and engaged in material activities has no good qualities, even if he is adept at the practice of mystic yoga or the honest endeavor of maintaining his family and relatives. He must be driven by his own mental speculations and must engage in the service of the Lord's external energy. How can there be any good qualities in such a man? Purport: as explained in the next verse, Krishna is the original source of all living entities. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 15:7, wherein Krishna says, Mamaivamsho jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatanaha manakshastan indriyani prakriti-stani karshati. The living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts. Due to conditioned life, they are struggling very hard with the six senses, which include the mind. All living entities are part and parcel of Krishna, and therefore, when they revive their original Krishna consciousness, they possess all the good qualities of Krishna in a small quantity. When one engages himself in the 9 processes of devotional service, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Pada, Sevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atma, Nivedanam, one's heart becomes purified and he immediately understands his relationship with Krishna. He then revives his original quality of Krishna consciousness. In the Adi Leela of Chaitanya Charitamrita, chapter 8, there is a description of some of the qualities of devotees. For example, Sri Pandit Haridas is described as being very well behaved, tolerant, peaceful, magnanimous, and grave. In addition, he spoke very sweetly. His endeavors were very pleasing. He was always patient. He respected everyone. He always worked for everyone's benefit. His mind was free of duplicity, and he was completely devoid of all malicious activities. These are all originally qualities of Krishna, and when one becomes a devotee, they automatically become manifest. Sri Krishnadas Kaviraj, the author of Chaitanya Charitamrita, says that all good qualities become manifest in the body of a Vaishnava, and that only by the presence of these good qualities can one distinguish a Vaishnava from a non-Vaishnava. Krishnadas Kaviraj lists the following 26 good qualities of a Vaishnava. 1. He is very kind to everyone. 2. He does not make anyone his enemy. 3. He is truthful. 4. He is equal to everyone. 5. No one can find any fault in him. 6. He is magnanimous. 7. He is mild. 8. He is always clean. 9. He is without possessions. 10. He works for everyone's benefit. 11. He is very peaceful. 12. He is always surrendered to Krishna. 13. He has no material desires. 14. He is very meek. 15. He is steady. 16. He controls his senses. 17. He does not eat more than required. 18. He is not influenced by the Lord's illusory energy. 19. He offers respect to everyone. 20. He does not desire any respect for himself. 21. He is grave. 22. He is merciful. 23. He is friendly. 24. He is poetic. 25. He is expert. And 26. He is silent. 13. Just as aquatics always desire to remain in the vast mass of water, all conditioned living entities naturally desire to remain in the vast existence of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, if someone very great by material calculations fails to take shelter of the Supreme Soul, but instead becomes attached to material household life, his greatness is like that of a young low-class couple. One who is too attached to material life loses all good spiritual qualities. Purport: although crocodiles are very fierce animals, they are powerless when they venture out of the water onto land. When they are out of the water, they cannot exhibit their original power. Similarly, the all-pervading Supersoul Paramatma is the source of all living entities, and all living entities are part and parcel of Him. When the living entity remains in contact with the all-pervading Vasudeva, the personality of Godhead, he manifests his spiritual power exactly as a crocodile exhibits his strength in the water. In other words, the greatness of the living entity can be perceived when he is in the spiritual world, engaged in spiritual activities. Many householders, although well educated in the knowledge of the Vedas, become attached to family life. They are compared herein to crocodiles out of water, for they are devoid of all spiritual strength. Their greatness is like that of a young husband and wife who, though uneducated, praise one another and become attracted to their own temporary beauty. This kind of greatness is appreciated only by low-class men with no qualifications. Everyone should therefore seek the shelter of the Supreme Soul, the source of all living entities. No one should waste his time in so-called happiness of materialistic household life. In the Vedic civilization, this type of crippled life is allowed only until one's 50th year, when one must give up family life and enter either the order of Vanaprastha, independent retired life for cultivation of spiritual knowledge, or sannyas, the renounced order in which one completely takes shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's one of my favorite verses, this verse. It's so observant of the psychology of low-class people in the material world. It's just, especially you see a young man and woman come together and then they think they own the world because they're enamored of one another. And then they don't care for anything else. In fact, there's a lot of movies about this and songs, but you see it in everyday life. And it's emblematic of the whole society also. Just this being enamored of the witch of Maya, which people think to be very beautiful, seductive, and so forth, and then they exhibit these low-class qualities of attachment and so forth. But the point is that they flaunt it, thinking that actually this is something advanced. And when they look at a spiritually advanced person, they see they don't see any merit to it, to that kind of lifestyle, because they're so enamored of the allurement of the material energy. And for a spiritual person, he or she sees that it's ludicrous, just as this verse is pointing out. It's also unseemly. And
What means unseemly?
unseemly, it doesn't look well.
Undignified.
It's undignified and unbecoming, and that it'll fall apart. I mean, the transcendentalist is seeing these interactions and how haughty the people are when they're engaged in them, thinking, because they're so intoxicated by the material energy. But then a transcendentalist sees the whole scenario, the whole relationship unraveling one way or the other, and coming to a unsavory end one way or the other, and just observes the whole material world like this. So the Srimad Bhagavatam is so satisfying because it's on our side, or we're trying to be on its side.
Sri Dhamma has a point.
Yes, Sri Dhamma.
I like the point that just as aquatics desire to remain in the vast mass of water, all conditioned living entities naturally desire to remain in the vast existence of the Supreme Lord.
That is nice, isn't it?
Yeah. He's mining the gems.
I was just thinking about the point you just made about the couples and how they're enamored on, how you can see that on book distribution actually, because so here's another one. Like they just invented this feeling, you know, but then there's 45 other couples behind them.
That's exactly. You know, when I first started distributing books, I was in Market and Powell, and I was out one day. I think it was with Vishal or some older devotee was taking me around, and we had the Reservoir of Pleasure, and I was distributing to different people, and I came up to this couple, and I showed the guy the Reservoir of Pleasure, and I had some really straightforward kind of line. I said, "See, would you like a Reservoir of Pleasure?" And he looked at his girlfriend. He said, "I already have a Reservoir of Pleasure." And I was thinking, that's ridiculous, you know? Like, you don't even know anything. And things never change. I mean, everybody thinks like that. They'll even have the audacity to say it, and because they're so ignorant.
That's a really good point about how things never change. When I went back to take care of my mom after having left the place of my birth and where I was raised for I can't even count the number of years, 1964 to 1997 or 95, and everywhere I went I saw exactly the same things were going on in the same way as when I was in high school. You know, it was a real eye-opener, to say the least. Yeah.
A lot of wires around here.
Where were you wired? You wired.
Thank you. Thank you very much. 14. Ready?
Yes.
Keep going, right?
Yes.
I know. Therefore, O demons, give up the so-called happiness of family life and simply take shelter of the lotus feet of Lord Nrsingadev, which are the actual shelter of fearlessness. Entanglement in family life is the root cause of material attachment. Indefatigable desires, moroseness, anger, despair, fear, and the desire for false prestige, all of which result in the repetition of birth and death. Not very good. Better get it fixed.
What does that word mean?
Indefatigable means that it doesn't cease. Can we have the, here, I'll give it.
That which does not get tired.
It does, no fatigue. It doesn't, I don't have my dictionary anymore.
What happened? We gotta fix that.
You gotta find
Yeah.
In-
I'm looking at my
Tireless, untiring, unflagging, unwearied, determined, tenacious, dogged, single-minded, assiduous, industrious, hardworking, unswerving, unfaltering, unwavering, unshakable, resolute, indomitable, persistent, relentless, unremitting.
That sounds like you.
Pretty much. That sounds like all my good bad qualities.
Early 17th century, from French or from Latin, indefatigabilis, from in, not, plus de, away completely, plus fatigare, wear out. Shukadeva Goswami continued, in the tract of land called Ketumala Varsha, Lord Vishnu lives in the form of Kamadev, only for the satisfaction of his devotees. These include Lakshmiji, the goddess of fortune, the Prajapati, Samvatsara, and all of Samvatsara's sons and daughters. The daughters of Prajapati are considered the controlling deities of the nights, and his sons are considered the controllers of the days. The Prajapati's offspring number 36,000, one for each day and each night in his lifetime as lifetime of a human being. At the end of each year, the Prajapati's daughters become very agitated upon seeing the extremely effulgent disk of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and thus they all suffer miscarriages. Purport: this Kamadev, who appears as Krishna's son named Pradyumna, is Vishnu Tattva. How this is so is explained by Madhvacharya, who quotes from the Brahmanda Purana, Kamadeva stitam Vishnum upaste. Although this Kamadev is Vishnu Tattva, his body is not spiritual, but material. Lord Vishnu as Pradyumna or Kamadev accepts a material body, but he still acts spiritually. It does not make any difference whether he accepts a spiritual or material body. He can act spiritually in any condition of existence. Mayavadi philosophers regard even Lord Krishna's body as material, but their opinions cannot impede the spiritual activity of the Lord. There you have it.
There you have it. Text 16, moving right along through the Varshas. In Ketumala Varsha, Lord Kamadev, Pradyumna, moves very graciously. His mild smile is very beautiful, and when he increases the beauty of his face by slightly raising his eyebrows and glancing playfully, he pleases the goddess of fortune. Thus he enjoys his transcendental senses. Text 17. Accompanied during the daytime by the sons of Prajapati, the predominating deities of the days, and accompanied at night by his daughters, the deities of the nights, Lakshmi Devi worships the Lord during the period known as the Samvatsara, in his most merciful form as Kamadeva. Fully absorbed in devotional service, she chants the following mantras. Purport: the word Maya Mayam, used in this verse, should not be understood according to the interpretations of the Mayavadis. Maya means affection as well as illusion. When a mother deals with her child affectionately, she is called Maya Maya. In whatever form the Supreme Lord Vishnu appears, he is always affectionate toward his devotees. Thus the word Maya Mayam is used here to mean very affectionate toward the devotees. Srila Jiva Goswami writes in this regard that Maya Mayam can also mean Kripa, Pachuram, deeply merciful. Similarly, Srila Raghava says, Maya Prachuranyat Maya Salkalpena Parigrihitam Ityartak Jnana Paryayotra Maya Shabdaha. When one is very affectionate due to an intimate relationship, one is described as Maya Maya. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti explains, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains Maya Mayam by dividing it into the words Maya and Amayam. He explains these words to indicate that because the living entity is covered by the disease of illusion, the Lord is always eager to deliver his devotee from the clutches of Maya and cure him of the disease caused by the illusory energy.
And that ends tonight's reading of the Srimad Bhagavatam. We thank everybody who joined us online from various places around the world. Thanks to everybody who joined us here
Thank
in
you. Thank you.
the live studio of Govardhan Hill. And we look forward to seeing you tomorrow when we take it up again as 10:45 a.m. India Standard Time, right here, Krishna willing. Gaur Premanande.
Hari Hari Bol.
Nitai Gaura Hari
Bol. Hari Bol. Hari Bol. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Hari Bol. Hari Bol. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Adhikanam Bhavnibhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha.
You don't have to go home,
Is finally
but you can't
fully
stay here.
Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, hey, Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman.